I commonly get this question: how do I know if I'm compatible with my partner? How do I know if we are just the right fit of things? And I'll be honest with you, this is a hard question to answer. The idea of compatibility, I don't think that anybody's meant to be together, to be exactly the same. Most people in relationships want something that's a little bit different than them, right? So it's not about having somebody who's exactly like you, but there is this sort of compatibility of your strengths and my strengths kind of complement each other. So when people first see me, before I go straight for, oh yeah, you should break up, which by the way, I'm very cautious about ever actually saying that directly to people. I'm not saying I've never done it before. I have. But it's rare and it's done with a great deal of tactfulness and caution. So when people first see me, usually you are in your more extreme versions of yourself. And so part of the work we do in therapy is, how do I bring you back to that complementary space? So what I'll be asking questions about when you first come in are, what are ways that you were once complementary? If there was that sense of complementarity, and it seems like you guys are in your more extreme versions of yourself, it may be that you just have gotten to a point where you need to come back in a little bit, that your character traits have gotten too extreme, essentially. And whenever we're in our more extreme versions of ourselves, we're going to grate on each other. It's going to be more difficult. But so if there was complementarity at some point, there is likely a possibility for that in the future. Where I tend to fall on that side of ooh, this might be worth considering whether you stay or go, is if you can't look back and see any version of that from the history of the relationship, right? People who come in and say, well, I really do 90% of the work in the relationship and my partner doesn't do much. Well, that's not very complimentary. That's just you carry the weight of the relationship, right? So those are things I look for. Are you carrying the emotional, physical, social weight, all of those things in the relationship? If that's the case, then that's not complementarity. Even when there is a diagnosis, for example, so everybody and their aunts and uncle has a diagnosis of something now. So that to me isn't necessarily a thing to end a relationship over, people having anxiety or ADHD or autism. None of those things I think are relationship enders, because we have so many different things out there now. We're just becoming more aware of them. But again, is in this sort of idea of are we putting in our weight in this relationship? Is the person who has the diagnosis doing active work to take care of it? Are they treating that? Are they doing what they need to be a part of the relationship? And so that's really what I look for in terms of, how do I decide whether to stay or leave? As if both people are trying to put effort and it's just not coming in the right direction. Well, then that's something to work on, right? I see couples come in here where you're both putting a lot of effort. It's just not directed the best way. And so then in therapy, all we're doing is course correcting. It's oh, wow, here's where all that effort is happening that might not be so great for you. So let's move that over here. And you're doing all this here. Let's move this over here. And really that's what therapy looks like, is how do we shift and course correct so that when you are putting that effort in, it's really, it has an impact essentially. And to me, that is the thing. That's the thing to look for, is there effort being placed and it's just misplaced? Or is there really no effort being put in anymore and it's all you? I think it's perfectly reasonable to end a relationship if you're carrying the weight of it all and your partner really isn't. So anyhow, this is Angela. You can like and subscribe if you want to see more of these videos. Also, I know that's a complex question, so please don't end your relationship based on this video. Please talk to me or a therapist near you so you can figure that out in more depth, because also sometimes we perceive situations where a person is working where they're not, or we perceive that they aren't where they are. So still get help, please. And also, if you'd like to get help from me, you can visit my website at therapistintlouis.com and submit a contact form.